we are in the studio virtual, and we're here now with yet another episode of Talking About Us. I'm so grateful you're here. This is a good one, people. Let me tell you, I'm excited about this. And nephew doesn't even know because I'm cheating because I know the story. But I forgot. So I'm Kimberly Braswell.
I'm Devon Croxton.
And today, friends and family, we have who I affectionately refer to as Doc Sims. So today, nephew, break down what the topic is for today.
The topic for today is spirituality. So we're going to explore finding your voice through spirituality. Just as a reminder, that's our theme for this year, as we explore these different lived experiences, finding our voice.
Yeah. So just to kind of ground this topic a little bit, we are not using spirituality as what specific building and faith practice. We're really defining it as understanding your purpose, understanding a connection to something higher than you. Yes. And so this means I love how you phrase it in a lot of our times when we're in fellowship with each other. Doc Sim says, the God of your understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I love that, right? And so let's first, because I'm also cheating, and your starter question, nephew, before we get into Doc Sim's story, because it's fascinating. What was the question that you were curious about as we were coming in?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to lay some groundwork. So my question was the difference between spirituality and religion and where we draw that line and how do we distinguish between the two?
Well,
So,
I'm gonna give you. I'm sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead, Kim.
No, go ahead, Doc Sims, because that's what I was about to do, was come right to you.
Okay. What I've learned is that my early days in the rehab, I just found out that I was just a fragile guy on the inside, a little boy that was scared, running around looking for a sense of love. But what I found out was that religion is a set of principles that people live by. That if you don't live up to them, there may be some sort of harsh punishment, damnation. Is real strict and almost impossible to do. But spirituality is that inner yearning, inner desire to be at peace with yourself, others, and your environment. Not particularly saying that it has to be a God that's doing it, but if it's on the inside, the Most High living there without trying to emphasize it to separate people. That is your sense of peacefulness and mindfulness. And it works for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that distinction.
So the part that's resonating with me is this inner yearning to be at peace with yourself. Now you done cheated a little bit, Doc Sims, and you almost teased out the story. Tell Devon, nephew, your story. Who are you? And here's part of how I want you to answer this question.
Okay.
Based on who you are, I am interested in why you think I invited you for this topic.
Wow. One of the reasons why is that I've been in recovery for going on 32 years. Crack cocaine, you don't normally see people that you normally see that with Alcoholics Anonymous. Crack cocaine is such a powerful drug until it would not allow people to stay in it long enough. But if you have a sense of resilience, it has to show itself in a way that says, you know what? I've made it through the struggle. I've got to go back and help someone else. What I did find out was that they allowed me to have 12 steps through Narcotics Anonymous, AA, and so forth. Those 12 steps was categorized in three categories, groups of fours. The first four steps encouraged me to trust God of my understanding. The next four told me to spiritually clean house with no reservations. And then the last four steps said, help other people. And knowing there has to be a daily inventory about certain things in your life, that you're not perfect, you'll never be, but those things in life because you're human. But as long as you do not change your clean date or your sobriety date, when the God of your understanding get ready for you, he'll bring you home. So in life, there are things that people go through. Say, man, my uncle, my dad are drunk. He's poor. He ain't about nothing. I wish I did. I hate crack cocaine. I hate drunks. And the thing to it is that I saw my dad. as an alcoholic, a weekend alcoholic. He would go in the closet sometime and like he's going to the bathroom. My mom would come up to him, get your nasty out of here. And I said to myself, I'm not going to be like that when I become an adult. Had no idea that it would not be alcohol, but it would be crack cocaine. And it took many things away from me. I thought it took many things away from me, but it removed me away from it. Personal things, relationships, job, the opportunity to perhaps get a college degree, none of that matter. The desire for drugs and alcohol was so strong until, wait a minute, there got to be more to life than just getting high and being irresponsible as far as being behind on child support. But I found a purpose in my life at the lowest point in my life because the same thing that made me laugh was the same damn thing that brought me to my knees. And the only thing I could do is look up and say, God, please help me. And my mom looked at me because my mom did alcohol and cigarettes. She said, somebody please help my baby. And I think it's got to be frustrating for a mother who want to help their child and can't do anything about it. But that allowed me to sort of say, you know what? I got to walk this journey by myself. Tears, frustration, humility, a lack of understanding, but resilience was really strong in my life because I was always an athlete. I had to reach down and say, no matter whatever the score is, I got to keep playing. Injuries, tears, getting cussed out, I just kept moving forward. So with that, mental health just sort of fell in my lap. That's what happened. It just sort of fell in my lap. So I don't know, Ken, if I answered your question or not.
Yeah. Oh, and listen, it's gonna be plenty more. Cause I mean,
Okay.
already I'm like, I don't know about you, nephew, but I'm sitting, I'm like, I got 37 questions, so you better jump in
Uh,
here.
yeah, yeah, I got like
Okay.
another 52, so we're gonna skim it down at some point. That is an incredible story. Wow, I don't even know where to begin. I'll let you take the
So I'm
lead.
curious, Doc Sims. Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
first, what sports did I can't believe in all the space we've held together, I've never asked you what sports you played.
I played baseball, basketball, and football. I went year round.
Wow.
Don't remember telling you that I'm a high school official?
Yes.
Yes, and I found out that the guys who did not play very well become fantastic coaches, but guys who play very well become fantastic officials. Those who confuse ain't by.
That one right there. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I thought I put it out there like that.
Yep. So Doc,
Go ahead,
well,
Ken.
first of
Go
all,
ahead.
how tall are you?
5'6", not a very
Okay.
big guy. Yeah.
You're just a beast.
Well, I did have a lot of heart though. Really did. Really had a lot of heart. Exactly.
Hmm.
A lot of heart.
So what before when you were, I guess, during, no, let me see. Before, during addiction, occupationally, what did you do versus what you're doing now? So you can share with the people what you do now.
Mhm.
Okay. Before addiction, I was probably a college student, of course, a college student. Went to two universities, Alabama A&M in the South, and Tuskegee University. As that was an institute. When I was at Alabama A&M, I was there on a scholarship, but I pledged Omega Psi Phi, forgot about the academic part of it, and flunked out. So what I said was I was going to do transfer to Tuskegee to perhaps play football down there. But when I transferred, they counted it as an eligibility year. So I'm down in Tuskegee. Want to be on the football team, can't do that. So I started working as a baggage clerk at a grocery store. Did that for a couple of years, and there was this young lady that kept asking about me. That young lady is now my wife. But what happened was there was always a friendship and a respect level that exists between her and I. She had a boyfriend back home. I had someone I was hooked up back home, but we always knew that we were college sweethearts. So when she graduated, she went her way, I went my way. That marriage did not work out for 10 years. For the same 10 years, I was struggling with addiction. Happened to see each other through her sister in law at the lowest point of my life. She said, wow, just had a conversation. I told her that I had a problem. She said, Ralph, I'll come eat lunch with you. She came and ate lunch with me. And she said, I knew you was going through something because I know the time that I seen you, you didn't look the same and you didn't have any money. She never turned her back on me. My mother, my sister, and my friend, who's now my wife, were the three women that I looked to. And when I got to treatment, I said all of my early educational years was governed by women. I didn't have a grandmother, but I had a mother, had an aunt, kindergarten, first grade, third grade. I didn't see a male teacher until I got into the seventh grade, but I had male coaches. So I was always prone to listen to women who was giving me guidance and love at the same time. So I realized that, wow, here I am at this point in my life. What do I do? So I left Tuskegee with no degree. I wanted to do physical therapy. That didn't work out. So my addiction pulled me up to another point in time. I was just doing marijuana, little cocaine here and there. But when I got back to Birmingham, I got introduced to powder cocaine. And for maybe about 5 or 6 years, I was a part of a fashion group called Decarb Models. I was one of the fashion coordinators. My brother and myself, and maybe about 8 or 9 women. With that particular part of my life, people thought that I was gay because, for the most part, models, men models are for the most part are feminine. But they didn't understand there was something inside of me that I did mine with soul, style, grace, and expression. I did it like that. And those who knew me knew that I was not struggling with my sexuality at all. But I realized that at one point in time around the Birmingham area, we was the so my head got blew up, was getting in clubs and backstage stuff, all the kind of stuff. And I'm saying to myself, what is my life about? But I wanted to be loved on my own level. Was not able to do, and I was working at a restaurant at the time, uh, a white restaurant, just doing part-time stuff. Maybe the hookup man for the drug. Maybe I get me a little bit, 25, $30. I was just living right there and live with my parents. So I was actually living a fake life. But it was comfortable for me because I knew that my ambition was low. I didn't expect very much. But I always wondered, where is my son? But I never allowed him to see me at my lowest point. He is now 45 years old. We have a great relationship on this side. But when I told him, maybe about 15, 16 years ago, we had an 8 hour conversation. He said, Dad, I understand now. You didn't want me to see you that way. I can
I have
appreciate that.
I have to stop you, Doc Sims, right
Okay.
here. And nephew knows why.
What I do?
You don't even understand. Like, we about to have a moment. It's so,
Parallels,
Oh,
parallels.
yes. Go ahead, nephew.
wow.
Um, that
Wow. Okay.
experience is very similar to me and my biological father's experience.
Okay. Come
So it's
on.
interesting. You're kind of like on my dad's side of the story, and it's kind of interesting here. You say your perspective versus me, kind of relating to your son's perspective of
Yeah.
why you were absent for these amount of years and what was going on, and
Yeah.
to hear you say that you wanted to present yourself in a certain way. Um, Out of respect for yourself and respect for the relationship that you have with your son was really
Yeah.
interesting because I had a similar experience on the other side of that coin.
Wow.
Hmm. And nephew, share a little bit about,
Yeah, man, this good.
to kind of link this about like how part of what happened with your dad helped you find your voice, especially going from like anger to a point of, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It was I uh, I was carrying a lot of his traits and characteristics and was not aware of it until I was mature enough to have that conversation with him and reconnect with him after many years and kind of figure out the missing pieces of my identity and how that shaped my voice up until that point and then even post that conversation. Um, so like I would harbor a lot of like anger and things like that out of frustration and confusion of like why we're not um, why we don't have a relationship and why he's not in my life and things like that. I harbored all of those things, and I was wondering why I felt that way about life. And then eventually got old enough to reconnect with him, have that conversation, and hearing his side allowed me to filter out the positives and the negatives. So, what aspects of him do I want to keep, carry on, and strengthen versus what do I want to set aside and not adapt? And to Kim's point about anger, that was something I definitely wanted to put down or manage in a better container instead of just like outwardly expressing myself all the time. And that manifested into being very logical, slow to respond, and observant. I became more thought provoking, So instead of just immediate rah rah reaction, it's take a step back, evaluate the situation, then make a thoughtful decision.
Did you ever ask him about the relationship between his mom and him?
Absolutely. And
What was that like?
not so good, not so good because she had some elements of being neglectful. Him being the older of his siblings, he was like becoming more of a parent at an earlier age than he expected to.
Okay.
Um, as far as his relationship with his father, it was kind of the exact same situation between me and him. So you see how these generational cycles start to manifest.
Yeah.
So his mom and dad, their relationship didn't work out. But what was even worse, I would say, in his scenario versus mine, was that his father lived like in the same neighborhood. He
Mm,
just purposely chose not to be in their lives or not to be present. Um, and then, as far as me and my father, our relationship was like the distance was there because he actually like moved states away. So like that's a whole nother layer of like someone's in arm's reach and still chooses not to be in your life versus like there's distance that makes it more complex.
wow. How old were your dad when you were born? How old was he at the time,
Um,
roughly?
roughly late 20s, maybe early 30s.
Okay. I
Yep.
was 17 when my son was born
Wow.
and turned
That's
18.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what's interesting about this just sitting, well, and honestly, how, you know, and Doc Sims, this is already, I'm seeing like divine intervention, with this, like there is something that's so fascinating about how we have had completely different podcasts with completely different topics, episodes, guests that don't know each other, stories, all kinds of stuff, and how the stories keep linking,
Wow.
particularly the men's stories keep
Wow.
linking.
Linking.
Yes. And
Wow.
I am I'm intrigued, and I'm going to ask this for both of you about well, by the way, quick other link first. It completely slipped my mind that you both are MPHC men.
Yep. I'm also Greek. Yep. I'm
Okay.
a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So we got
Divine
the
Nine. It's
alpha and
all
the
good.
omega on the
Yep.
phone.
I told guys in the detention center that I'm in a gang. Yeah, yeah, I'm in a gang. But you got to have been in college to have your money.
Right,
So you can't be in this game stupid and go to
right,
jail. No.
yeah. So real quick to link some stuff.
Oh yeah, right.
Doc Sims, can you tell the folks who are going to be listening to this? So we hear the story building up to this moment. Can you share with people the work you do now? Like, what do you do, not for a living, but for a calling? What do you do now? And then Devon, can
Wow.
you also share what you do for a calling now?
Okay.
Well, Devon, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Go
So,
ahead.
well, I guess on a calling level, I think my calling is related to helping people think more deeply and more critically. Professionally, I am an educational psychologist. So I'm fascinated with how people learn and think and navigate decision making on a simpler level.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to think, Kim. That's a loaded question.
Well, you can say
Um,
what you do And
Okay.
but I think what you're called to do is tied into, and I got 1,300 more questions, Doc
Okay.
Sims.
That's all right. We'll go from there. Uh, I first started out just volunteering my time at the treatment facility in which I went to. So I was actually facilitating weekly groups, doing that, recovering addict and alcoholic, along with family members. I did that for a while. Uh, Volunteered some years ago, maybe the late 90s, to do domestic violence as a facilitator and got trained doing that and began to move more into that. Now become a lead facilitator. Have done some prison ministry work uh, in the city jail, the county jail. Have done some with the detention center. Lately has done some stuff with the reentry and fatherhood. Has done some work with the Pardon and Parole Board. Now a part of the gun violence in the Birmingham area of upcoming program, HVIP program. Let me think. Have done several speaking engagements in anger management, domestic violence at all female facilities. One of them is just drugs and alcohol. Another one was a reentry program of all females. I never felt threatened. I never felt disrespected at no point in time. What else I've done? Ooh, of course I enjoy officiating football because a lot of football and basketball because a lot of time I get a chance to see people. They say, "Man, you still look good." That's only by the grace of God. But I realize that I do have high blood pressure and heart disease that run in my family. Both my mother and father did have open heart surgery, but they were not athletically inclined like I am. I do take 2 forms of high blood pressure medication, and I do the best I can as far as being conscious of what I eat and take my medication and going about my day. So actually, I work at a church in maintenance and building services. I do that as a full-time job. It allows me to do anything else I need to do. They work along with me. I'm not hourly. Pay me on salary. And one thing about it, I will say, and I'm not saying cocky, they've never met an African man like me because the person who I'm responsible for, if they can talk to God, their skin tone color will look just like mine. Long time ago, they would call them level. Today, they call them something different. But I realized that that's what my life is. It's being orchestrated by the Most High that He put me in places that keep me grateful, but also not cocky about anything. Because at any point in time, I'm still one drink and one drug away from active addiction, and also one incident away from being in the back of a police car for domestic violence. So I try my best not to talk clean and live dirty. I'm
Yeah,
like BB King. I like to live the life I sing about in my songs.
that's right.
So I hope I answered for that question.
Yes, you did. And this is for both of you because I'm just intrigued by this, especially now seeing like these interesting ways these stories kind of intersect with each other. And I guess this is specifically for you, Doc Sims. Do you recall the moment when you realized that somehow this pathway and this heaviness, these different experiences that you had, the addiction, where it turned into like what you realized you were called to do, where it actually gave purpose to your voice? Because, and I'll say this from the outside, there's, I can't imagine how many lives you've been able to touch, how many people you've been able to bear witness to, because you went through something that takes many, many people out. Not only did
Mm,
it not, but then you purposed it, right? To go back, right? You talk about Sankofa, go back and get it, go back and get that which we have forgotten. And you were spared, right? So that you could go back to places and to people who we are afraid of, people who we've dismissed. And
mm,
because of your voice, because of your story's louder, your voice is more clear, right, to
mm.
them than somebody else who's never experienced that experience. And I'm just curious about, do you remember the moment or the season when you're like, I I know what I'm supposed to do, or I know what I'm supposed to do with this sobriety, because that's not everybody's story.
Mhm.
Wow. I'm gonna give you two of them. There was a time I was in my apartment, and at the time my roommate was getting ready to get married. Very dear friend of mine. He's going on to be with the Lord now. He said, "Man, I don't know what you're gonna do, I'm about to get married. This apartment gonna be on you. I'm getting all my shit out of here. You do what you need to do, player. Handle your business. He walked away from me, and I felt the emptiness. I said, "Here's my dear friend." Turned his back on me, said he getting ready to go over his life. You can have it. So I sat on the couch and I grabbed a knife. I said, "My life is not worth living anymore.
Mm.
I've lost one job, about to lose another job. Got cars repossessed. There's nothing in the refrigerator to eat. I was getting ready to stab myself in the heart. Somebody knocked on the door looking for someone else, and that was the wrong apartment. I knew then it was God telling me two things. Hold on. When I closed the door, I fell down, tried to pray. I cried like a baby. I can't do this no more. I can't keep living like this. There's got to be more to life than getting high.
Yeah.
So those are three people that I call. I call my mom, I call my sister, and I call my friend. They said we knew something was wrong with you. We didn't know how to help you. My mother came over to take me to the pickup spot. My sister prayed with me and asked me for a list of things that I needed because she knew I needed some stuff. And my friend, which is now my wife, said, "Ralph, I'll come eat lunch with you." And she gave me $20 to on me. And I realized that when I went down there, I had support. But when I
Yeah.
got down there, they said, "Don't be ashamed to tell anything from your childhood. We're here for you." When I got down there, I said, "These damn white folks don't know about me." There was one black counselor there. He was mine. When I went into the office, you heard what I had to say? He locked the door. He said, "Shut up and let me do my job. You may know a lot of things about getting high, but you don't know a damn thing about recovery." That was the second moment. And he
Mm.
encouraged me, "Ralph, you here. You only share your experience, strength, and hope. Honesty comes in different levels. But whenever you get to the gut level honesty, you don't care who hear you because it lessens the intensity of the pain or the confusion that you're going through. You only as sick as your secret. You keep them secret, you can die with them, they go in the casket. But if you let somebody in on it, I guarantee you it'll get less. But you come to accept the fact that this who you are and understand there's a purpose in your life. And I roll with that. And people kept telling me, "Man," I said, "What one of you what I got to say?" I would just open my mouth and God would put words in there. I'd be amazed. I said that? I don't know, man. And what was amazing was I wasn't high.
Yes.
I, I wasn't high saying that. I wasn't trying to impress no one. And I found out that I don't have to try to impress nobody. I'm just trying to get close to God. And with that being the thing, whenever you see me, I just happen to see it differently.
And it's
So
like
that's
he gave
wow.
you words. Like he literally,
Yes,
right? This like divinity and just giving you the things to say,
yes,
clarity in your mind.
right.
And you know, nephew, what I'm thinking about too, that Doc said, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, especially in thinking about some of the stories that we've heard.
Hmm.
This whole thing about like no secrets,
Right.
Yes.
right? Like no secrets, thinking about the pattern and some of these stories that we've heard about how sometimes the secret or whatever the thing is that we're hiding, that's what
Mm-hmm.
stifles the voice. It
Yes,
stifles me from
yes,
being able to be who I need to be, say what
yes,
I need to say, feel,
yes,
think, be, believe, the things, because it's
Lord.
blocking me. Like
Yes.
the denial of truth
Mm-hmm.
blocks me, right? And thinking about like your need to have that conversation with your dad, nephew, right?
Yes. Absolutely. That was a
Thinking,
moment for me. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And like that had to come out versus like acting like you didn't care, acting like you didn't want to have the conversation or in any
Mm-hmm.
kind of way, or letting that anger block you. And thinking to past episodes about um Lisa, right? And
I
like,
was just thinking that too. Yep.
and these things about like how I felt, things that I've experienced, which she didn't go into detail, but like things that I've experienced, hurts and harms and traumas and things that have happened to me that I don't want to happen to my kids, that eventually was the impetus for her saying like, I have to do this thing that I think I can't do. And right, and it was something beyond her that led her. Thinking about when Lindell was talking about his story about being a parent
Hmm.
with no paternal rubric,
Yeah, no
Mm.
examples. Yeah.
right? No fatherly example about what this is supposed to look like, and being
Mm.
led about how one is supposed to move.
Wow.
Yeah, Doc Sam's, your comment, you're only as sick as your secrets, really stuck with me.
Wow.
Um, and literally, as Kim stated, every guest that we've had, the moment or the inflection point of them finding their voice was that deep spiritual feeling or connection with
Hmm.
another person that
Yes.
helped them navigate that truth and come to that realization. Um, and even in my own story, I felt like I had to address any secrets or of
Hmm.
pain and hurt
Yeah.
and confusion. And the moment I just released those things, regardless of what the outcome was going to be, you don't know what's going to happen every time, but that moment of release is so powerful.
Yeah. I will say this, nephew, that the conversation that I had with my son, he had recently got married, and he was able to ask me all the questions that pondered his mind.
Mm,
And one of the things that he can attest to, that I never talked crazy to his mom. He never saw me put a hands on her. He didn't see that. But he heard about his dad was on drugs. So he was able to say, well, you didn't come around. Not that you disrespected my mom, but in the meantime, he realized I was only 17 years old. But what
mm,
he did ask me was, what would you like at certain ages? When he began to tell me some of the things, and I began to tell him some of the other things that I had done, he said, oh my God, we are the same.
yes.
So biologically, I was the only one that's able to speak into his life to tell him exactly who he is. Because no one else could do that but me. It was my responsibility to do that. And he asked myself, he like, wow, Dad, I didn't know that. And what happened was, instead of being angry, he got enlightened and said, here I am. There's another man that I came from that experienced the same thing, but at the age I could have told him, he was not open and receptive to it. But as a newly married guy, he said, Dad, I got all respect in the world for you, because when I think about when I was 17, I was thinking about what area I wanted to go into, what profession I wasn't thinking about being no parent. You was my dad as a teenager, but you didn't treat me this, that, and the other. And I would come around, and I came around, his other little cousins, they like, hey, that Antoine dad, that's Antoine daddy. He said, yeah, that's my dad, where y'all daddy? I'm like, okay, all right, this is what it's about. But to remain active in his life, and it brings tears of joy to my soul, knowing that he's actually a therapist and he loves helping people. The DNA is strong when it's psychological and biological, nephew.
Yep.
You have to ask the questions and be open for the answers. And I cried. I said, I wish I could have been a better man. He said, Dad, you was what you're supposed to be, because I can talk to you. I don't have to go to a grave site with a hole in the ground and say, I wish I could have talked to him.
Mhm.
I wish I could have spent time with him. He don't have to say that. He asked me those questions. And the question that he asked me, I gave it to him raw. Just like he asked me, I gave it to him straight up. Not disrespectful, but father to son and man to man, all in the same wave. And we hugged and we cried. We came upstairs. I'm like, wow, we've been now talking downstairs for 8 hours. What y'all talking about some more? And my wife said, y'all talking all that time? I said, we sure was. You want to eat y'all was? No, 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 y'all go on. But it was something that was so neat, and that set the cornerstone, because he had been married probably about 2 years. And what was unique about it is that I love God. I'm a Christian. He's a Jehovah's Witness. So they had a different kind of wedding. He asked me, he said, Dad, I know that you and my mom are not together, but can you escort her down the aisle for me? I said, I'll do that for you. It didn't sit well with my wife. and I knew that it wouldn't. But he asked me to do that as his dad, as a favor. And I honored that, knowing that my wife may have a little flyness by the mouth. That was fine. But I realized that he only asked me that not to start any old flame, and there was a different kind of wedding, and I was able to do that. And he said, Dad, I thank you so much because that meant so much to me to see both of my parents at a ceremony that united me with a young lady that I love. So it's definitely a growing thing. It continues to move on. When I tell him, every time I get a chance to holler at him, how proud I am of him. I'm real blessed to have him. That's my oldest son. He has a little girl. He's trying to be the best dad he can. He's no longer married anymore, but he's very in touch with his mannerism, the way he handled people, the way he handled other people. And he realized that it not only came from me, but it also came from his granddaddy, which is my daddy. But he did tell me as a little boy, he said, Dad, the energy that you generate around people, I wanted that. I just didn't know how to get it. I know now it's been there the whole time. I just had to come up on enough birthdays to realize that I didn't need to go looking for something like a Wizard of Oz. It was already inside of me. And those kind of conversations grow to the fact is that it's okay to be confused. It's okay to be angry. But the fact is that you only get one earthly father. And some things he just don't understand, or he's ill equipped. He don't have that kind of experience. And you have a right to be hurt, upset, cuss him out. And when that comes out, trust me, what you get out of that is a possibility of a unified love. You talking about real love from man to love, man to man. There's nothing like it. There's not a drug in the world they can replace. Because I'm gonna tell you, mother's love is awesome, but the foundation of the entire world is based on the father's love for his son.
I'm just curious about listening to this. Like, what are you thinking and feeling?
Um, a lot. Wow. For lack of better words. I think you touched on something really interesting when you brought up your son's perspective, Doc, and that he felt like he had matured to the point of addressing his feelings or these secrets or these pains.
Yeah.
And um, I've spoke as I've shared my own story through previous episodes or just through social media and things like that. People have come to me asking like how they also progress to rebuilding relationships with parents and fixing familiar problems. And I think a lot of people want to do it so immediately or don't want to go through the process, things that
Wow.
are necessary to kind of prepare yourself and build yourself. Like I wasn't able to have a full-fledged candid conversation with my dad until I was 25. I'll
Okay.
be 28 next month.
Awesome.
So that's 25 years of navigating life and figuring things out, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I tell people all the time, if I had that conversation with him 2 or 3 years prior to 25, totally different conversation. And if I
Yes,
saw him in
sir.
person, it would be physical,
Yep.
and I would have did more damage than healing. And it's
Yes,
like
sir.
you got to understand, you have to be at a certain point to address
Yes.
these things in a
Yes.
proper way from a place of
Yes.
healing.
Wow.
So what's interesting listening to both of you is, and I'm going back to this foundational phraseology that I gave for understanding spirituality, right? Not necessarily through a religious practice, but through understanding purpose, understanding just a connection to something bigger than us.
Hmm.
And when I'm listening to you, um, Doc Sims and nephew, and I'm even thinking about me and my story and every single guest that we have had on Talk About Us. And to be completely honest, I'm kind of cheating about some of the stories for future guests we're going to have. There seems to be this moment in a story where, like, something bigger than you
Hmm.
takes
Wow.
over, something bigger than you has to take over. And some blend between this still small voice,
Hmm.
however that shows up for you in whatever way that shows up for you, and something in us that yields in that moment where instead of pressing the gas, we press the brakes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And whether it is that we've stilled ourselves or that we are, our spirit forced us to be still, that something switches,
Mm-hmm.
like something changes in you. And it's not something that you can control, like you can't just
Right.
be like, this is the moment, right? But we can
Mm-hmm.
yield ourselves and almost kind of, once you know it's possible, you can ready yourself to be like, what does this mean? And then lean into it, right? Because it's one thing about discovering that you have one voice, like you have
Yeah.
one. What are you
Right.
going to do with it, right? And then what is required of you once you feel like you have one,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
right? What is required of you to ready yourself for when that voice is supposed to be utilized? Because what I'm hearing in your stories and some other stories, I know it's true for me. And I use this as an example. I've been running my mouth all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I just talk all the time. They used to call me motor mouth, and my brother's joke and the family joke was they would give me a speed limit of a certain miles per hour about how much I was talking about, like
Oh
motor mouth X
wow.
many miles per hour, right? But now,
Wow.
like I make a living off of talking,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
But and there was a switch even in that, right? Because when I started getting to a point in my career where I was asked to go into, because I've been talking, doing all kinds of stuff for work, but like when it got to a point where I was invited to go into a room to talk to a whole room, right? Because a lot of
Mm.
what I do are like speaking engagements.
Okay.
What started changing for me was praying before I spoke and
Oh
meditating before I spoke,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Because it started getting to a point where I'm talking, I have a consciousness about what I'm saying, but there were some moments when I would kind of what I call get out the way. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I would get out the way, something different would happen in the room.
Yes.
Right. And so then what I started doing is let me intentionally prepare myself to get out of the way so that I have found my voice. And while I'm grateful for that, I think there's supposed to be something after finding my voice, and that is for my voice to be a vessel. Right.
Mm.
So then what
Wow.
happens if I get out of the way? Right. And so now what happens when I get asked to speak in a room, and sometimes it's a small room, big room, it doesn't matter. But if I know it matters what comes out of my throat, then what I
Mm.
say is I literally ask, I pray and meditate on, let my eyes be your eyes. Let my voice be your voice. If somebody hugs me, let it feel like whoever they need to feel,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in the way.
Mm.
So it's like it's got to be bigger than my voice.
Had to be. Mm.
It's got to be bigger than my voice. And when I started doing that, something different happened in the room every time.
That's amazing.
Not just, and I don't need the whole room to like have a moment, right? But
Right.
when I started doing that, I would always have at least one person who came to me either during or after the event and said they felt something.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me.
Mhm.
I believe it.
That's not me, right?
Wow.
But imagine if all the times when I was younger and people told me, stop talking, be quiet, hush, get out, sit, and if I would have completely lost my voice,
Mm.
then what?
Wow.
What would have happened? What would happen, Doc Sims, if you hadn't found your way?
Mm.
How many people would you have not been able to be a lighthouse for?
Yeah.
Nephew, if you hadn't found your way, how many people would you have not been able to hold space for and with? It's bigger than us.
Yes, it is.
It's bigger than us.
Ken, when you were saying that, that reminded me of I saw resilience as a little boy. My mother did not finish high school. She had 4 children. She was a teenage mother.
Wow.
I was a teenage father.
Yeah.
My dad, in as a little boy, lost one of his eyes. He had a lifetime handicap.
Mm.
But my mother, not having a high school diploma, worked at University of Alabama as a secretary, a professional position with no high school diploma for over 35 years. My
Wow.
dad went on with his life in the military and became a plant worker with one eye. And it just occurred to me that was Brazilians in front of me. I saw the example of that. And you, by saying that, there are certain things that's planted in our life early enough. And I also thought about the fact that when I was in high school, it was something about two topics, psychology and sociology. What I'm doing now, there is a connection. Having conversation like this reminds us of previous thing, but as you were saying, nephew, that when it linked back up at the appropriate age, now it makes so much sense.
Absolutely.
Wow, this is amazing. This is totally amazing. Wow. As many times I've been getting high, I ain't never been this high before.
I
I
know.
ain't called the dope man somewhere. I ain't had to hit it all. Man, woo this is excellent. This is totally excellent.
And I think too, and I
Wow.
know we got to get ready to wrap up. Nephew, I can't help but think about young people,
Hmm. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And if I think about this finding your voice through spirituality, and I think I'm going to go back to this word saying kofa, right? Go back and get
Hmm.
it. Go back and get
Right.
that which we have forgotten. The link with
Exactly.
spirituality means like when a little baby, before anything has happened, you're connected to things. And we
Right.
disconnect as we get older, right? You
Hmm.
start unlearning things when we get
Right.
too ungrounded, right?
Yeah.
We start connecting to these superficial things. And unfortunately, sometimes something has to happen. Something has to bring us back to connection.
Hmm. Yep.
I was thinking the other day, I was like walking the dog or something like that. And I was remembering really early about how spiritual of a child I was. I was
Mm.
fascinated by
Wow.
spirituality, fascinated by things like that were bigger than me. And I was taught, you know, directly and indirectly,
Mm.
implicitly and explicitly, to get more concrete and grounded in my thinking because I was in my head, right?
Hmm.
All the time, in my spirit and in my head all the time. And then I learned how to do that. And then it was life where I was like, I was right the whole time.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was right
Wow.
the whole time. Even today, I was like walking. I was trying to rush and walk my dog, to get back here. And I was walking at night. And I'm walking through this neighborhood and I'm like, I got my earbuds in and I'm singing like Bob Marley songs out loud, just walking, just in a moment of peace and joy. I think about that quote, right, that you said, Doc Sims, about this, right? Spirituality is an inner yearning to be at peace with yourself. I felt so at peace with myself. And I was thinking,
Mm.
as a woman by myself walking down the street, it's dark outside. And I remember this story I'd heard when I was little. And it was just like a story, but I believed it was true. I remember hearing a story about it was like somebody was walking down the street or something, and something should have happened, and they weren't harmed. And then later they were asked, like, why, what happened where they weren't harmed? And they said that the person was told, well, I was going to, but there were these two huge men walking behind you. And the person said, I was walking
Mm.
by myself,
Yep. Wow.
Wow.
right? I was walking by
Wow.
myself. But for me as a child, I believed that. I'm like, I do believe that might be real. I might have a divine,
Yes.
protection over me and thing. And then we get disconnected from it. And I was like, I was right the whole time.
Whole time.
Yep.
Wow.
I was right the whole time. And so, I mean, just in wrapping up and kind of like thinking about this, I'm thinking about next, right? I'm thinking about the babies, you
Mm.
know. Honestly, I'm thinking about both ends of it. I'm thinking about the elders and the babies. We're in the
Yeah.
middle,
In the middle.
right?
Wow.
But what do we do with this talk for the people who are at the beginning, right? You just forgot, about your voice, or the people who you're at what Doc Sense will call like the last quarter,
Hmm.
of your life. And you've got this voice. It's not too late. What do we do? What are the words? What is the message about connection, about purpose, if you're at the beginning or the end of your story? What do y'all think?
I think people should find hope in knowing that the connection was already there before they were thought of. And
Hmm.
so it's a matter of finding something that exists and not feeling like you have to create it from scratch or that you're someone who was just not selected. I think that we all have that connection. Um, the the challenge, and I think what deters people, is that getting back to that connection requires you to navigate some pain points.
Yeah.
Um, and we're so pain adverse sometimes that we run from the very thing that's going to actually develop us into a stronger person. Um, so understanding that once you go through that pain and you heal, just like any muscle, it becomes stronger and it becomes strengthened. Um, and I think also to Doc Sam's story and to every story of the guests that we've had so far, even yourself, Kim, and me, is that we also have natural spiritual connections with those who are close to us,
Hmm.
and we shouldn't take those things lightly.
Yeah.
So, Kim, for example, your sister, she felt she was hiding something from you without actually speaking to you, and you knew she was in trouble without actually speaking to her. That's a spiritual connection. That's something that's strong and that's real. For as an example, and I think that we should definitely keep keep that in mind.
Hmm. Yeah. Doc Sims, what do you think?
That's a very interesting question because I've had the opportunity to go into the detention center and talk to some high school and middle school boys in alternative schools. And for some reason, the first thing I have to pass a test. Can I trust you? Do you
Yeah.
care about me?
Yes.
What do you want from me?
Yes.
I don't need no old man with no gray hair trying to be cool.
Yeah.
But what I do realize is that my life lived experience, I want to hear what they have to say because
Yeah.
I'm asking them to teach me. But what they don't realize is that the wisdom that I have can be mixed with where they're coming from. Because sometimes the energy, they don't want to listen because they never had someone as old as I to speak into their life. Because if they did, they're trying to play granddad because you're going to give them some money or some favors. I got some time, I got some information, and I got some experience. Ain't got no money for you, get that from somewhere else. I
Mhm.
ain't here for that. So what happens is that if it's consistent, they
Yes.
get an opportunity to say, hey, Mr. Ram, hey, Mr. Ram. And I'm like, you remember you getting me at alternative school? I'd be like, did I? And they would say something that caught their attention. Because
Yes.
once a young man, a young student realized that you care for them and you've given them something, they become followers because they're looking for a leader. Because if they don't have anything attractive in their communities, illegal activity become attractive. But
Yes.
they got the fact is that they see a guy, because with me, my parents always taught me how to dress. I can dress in dress clothes, street clothes, wash your car clothes, necktie, do all that, and
Hmm.
never miss a beat. I don't have to look typical. Because if you look typical with the sagging pants and the grill, the police has not profiled you. You profile yourself. That's a
Right.
uniform. That's a
Yeah.
uniform. So when we've had those conversations, some people, and I tell you, and I'm just gonna be honest about it, the people in the church would tell people, come down front and give your life to Christ. That ain't what they talking about. They said, come over here. So you
Yeah.
got one group of people who won't go, other people said they ain't going. So now you got a gap in between there.
Yes.
But what's happening is that the religion part of what we talked about earlier prevents them. So I got to take this Bible up in there. And I'm gonna tell you, I was honest. It's been years ago. I said, how many of y'all like women? How many of y'all think y'all pimp? Y'all small. Y'all want some money. So I said, it's a pimp in the Bible. They said, man, you lying. I said, his name's Solomon. He had 700 wives and 300 side pieces and no Viagra. They said, man, you lying. Which means that I took the word of God,
Yeah.
translated to their language, and they asked me what scripture they is. When they looked at it, they said, man, he wasn't lying. But I didn't learn that from no White Institute or no HBCU, as you said, Sister Kim. That's
Yeah.
something that God gave me because I'm the only guy in there with a weapon in the county jail. I'm in the so-called violent unit. They took their weapons away. I said, what is it about me that I can go into a room of about maybe 125, 150 guys by myself
Yes.
and not be afraid? And these are the people that I want. Man, I won't be with no bad children. But God has allowed my life to be protected to the point that said, no, don't show them wrath, show them me. You open your
Yeah.
mouth, I put the words in there. And when I get ready to leave, hey, brother Sam, when you come back, man, when you coming back? I be like, man, and I realize that, man, whenever I get a chance to come back, but I do no favors and I make no phone call. But you can't tell me to call nobody. They already know you in here.
Hmm. Yeah.
So those are
Yeah.
the kind of things that it takes a special skill set to understand the younger version and the older version. Because a lot of old people, I ain't messing with old crazy music. That's just a bunch of trash. But it's happening.
Yeah.
I listened to Ghetto Boys back in the day. They had a
Hmm.
song called I'm Not a Gentleman. Oh, yes. But is it so different than anything else? So the music, the language, it has to have a certain kind of blend to it, though. And I realized that, I've been guilty of that. When I've gone to church and said, "Yeah, bro, Sam, you too worldly, man. You too much. You full of the world." I just let them talk. I said, I just happen to see it differently. I don't even address the issue because they don't understand what I understand. They
Yeah.
not going.
Hmm.
So that's what it is. That's what it is. It takes a skill set to do it because it's not going to happen by osmosis. So just have a long answer for a short question, Ken. But that's my truth, and I
No, no,
stick
no.
to it.
That's perfect. It's perfect. And so, nephew, what do you think? What do you hear as the takeaway from today?
Hmm. I feel like people should not ignore what they've been given, their own gifts. Sometimes the things that they've been shunned for are the very things that they need to step into purpose and to walk in purpose. I mean, just given off of what Dr. Sims just said, people label him as worldly, but he's
Mm-hmm.
serving his purpose in the world. He's
Yes.
going to the people
Mm,
that
mm,
have been shunned and need the most help, and he's going to
wow.
that audience,
Yeah.
and he
Mm,
was groomed intentionally for that audience.
my,
Hmm.
my,
Um,
my.
With no
Wow.
so yeah,
mistakes in how the story was formed.
yeah. Say that
Wow.
again.
No mistakes in how the story was formed.
Exactly. No mistakes. Everything happened the way it happened for a certain reason, and
Wow.
you just gotta find your audience and find the group that you relate to, because you were groomed for a specific set of people to help.
I love that. And I'm just going to stop right there because I think what a beautiful way for us to just sit still. And I invite anyone who's
Wow.
listening to this podcast, sit still, sit still and just know, like, what if your story, what if your voice is bigger than you? What if it's
Mm,
bigger than this moment? What if it's bigger than how you were going to write it? What if it's supposed to be in spaces that you would never put yourself in? What if it's supposed to involve the rough patch that you're listening to this while you're living through? And you need
mm,
that because that's the amplifier for your voice.
mm.
Doc Sims, I want to thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. This is really, sometimes you just have, what we call life experiences that you just enjoy. But this is one that's really ignited my spirit, and it just resonates so deeply with me. I was sharing earlier how I'm not really a technology person, but it's amazing how someone's spirit can come across a screen, be so natural until I just can't forget it. Sister Kim, I can't forget you, my sister. You are definitely a unique and definitely a blessing to my life. Whenever you got something going on, I'm like, where did it leak at? Where did it leak at? But now I'm with StreamYard, so whatever it takes. And nephew, pleased to meet you, man. I'm honored to be
Pleasure,
your
pleasure.
great uncle. You know, it's all good, man. It's all good. So it's hey, peace and love to both of you.
Thank you so much. Well, until the next episode of Talking About Us, I'm Kimberly Braswell.
I'm Devon Croxton.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
You're